My girlfriend and her son and I went to a movie yesterday. It's called The Triangle of Sadness, and it's a great satire of like wealth inequality. And we really got into it, and we really received its message. And then we left the movie theater, right? And we're talking about it. And we're talking about the different class systems here in Austria where we live. And suddenly, out of nowhere, we're waiting at a crosswalk, and this guy comes up to us, and he starts begging for money. And my girlfriend is kind of like pulling her son along. He wants to stay and kind of listen to this guy. So after this awkward sort of back and forth happened with this unhoused person, homeless person, my girlfriend and her son got in kind of an argument about it. He was like, we just watched this movie that's like a vicious, blistering satire of how people with means behave towards people who do not have means. He's like, how could you just pull me away from this guy who did not have means when he was asking for some help? And as they argued back and forth, I stepped back and listened, as I sometimes do. And I interrogated myself a little bit. I asked myself, where is your moral compass in this moment? Because I didn't feel guilt or shame at not having, this time, chosen to give the guy some money. And I thought to myself, well, should you have given him money? Should you feel bad about not having given him money? Why don't you? Where is your moral compass? And then it hit me. I was a beggar once upon a time. We had takahatsu begging practice at the monastery. So I want to talk a little bit about takahatsu begging practice today. Takahatsu basically translates as begging practice. And it's a practice that my teacher brought over from the Rinzai ZEN monasteries in Japan. So in his day, the monks would put on their begging robes and they would go down into the nearby village, and they would go from door to door and they would basically beg for food. And I think this was a way of both getting like that day's rations or that week's rations. It was also a way of reminding the people that they lived near, hey, we're up there on the mountain, don't forget about us, you can stop by anytime, bring us food, bring us donations. So it was a way of connecting with the community. And my teacher brought this tradition to our monastery in Southern California, which is a very different context for this kind of a practice. And so over the years, we had to kind of work out how to do it. So before my time, a monk had contacted the LA produce market and met a guy there who we worked out a way of doing takahatsu with this guy. The name of the guy that we did takahatsu with was Richard, and the name of his company was Umina. So here's what our begging practice looked like. You'd wake up a little bit earlier than the other monks. You'd make sure you were shaved. You had to be fully shaved for takahatsu. We had an old Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. God, I miss that truck. I love that truck. I am forever a fan of the Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. You'd get on the 10 freeway and you would head west to Los Angeles. Now, when I was doing takahatsu and I was making that trip from the mountaintop monastery where I was ensconced in, somewhat protected by, in the, I don't know, UFC spiritual cage fighting ring of this Rinzai samurai Zen monastery in the heart of a winter training period, leaving that space and then going down into slightly balmier, warmer Los Angeles, and then hitting that traffic coming into LA just as the sun is sort of starting to rise, and then going into this produce market. So it was weird for me going from this very spiritually privileged kind of environment, difficult but privileged, right into the guts of the food industry in downtown Los Angeles. There was some cognitive dissonance there. And I always had to gather myself. I was always a little bit nervous and a little bit scared. So I would pull up to the LA produce market and get out and go find Richard. So you walk through the dock. I had to do some walking to get to Umina. And you like really bright lights, and you're always walking through these cold refrigerated areas with a lot of guys screaming and shouting. You walk through, you come to the Richard's dock, and now the practice got really specific. You always came and you stood in a certain spot, right? And then you just stood there and you did like standing meditation. And it was really busy in that particular spot. Like that was where all the semis came in to take their food and drop food off. There was like deals going on. Like I think that they were negotiating and bargaining like right there. They had these cash registers and these podiums out on the dock outside there. And you're just standing there in the middle of it, right in the middle of like the heart of this capitalistic food economy, hustle and bustle. You're standing there in your spiritual outfit doing meditative, staring at the ground practice. And your job is, it's hard to describe exactly what the practice was. Like I have the feeling of it right now kind of in my heart and in my mind, and I'm trying to sort of pull that out and present it to you. You were asking for help. You were asking for help. You were manifesting total receptivity and openness. So the flavor of the practice was humbleness, hummus of the earth. You had no game. You had no pitch. This wasn't a sales pitch to get people to give you something. You were simply opening up your being and receiving. So this is why there was a very clear structure around how we did takahatsu practice. So it was all prearranged. Some monk had talked with Richard and said, this is how we're going to do this. Thank you. This is how we'll do it. The monk will show up and he's not going to say anything, and you're going to give him whatever you want to give, and we will take everything. So that was the rule with takahatsu. You don't turn anything away. You take it all. If Richard wants to give you his problem, his trash, you're going to take Richard's trash. So what this prearranged format allowed was you simply to show up completely open without having to say anything, make any kind of sales pitch. You just show up with an open being and receive. Richard kind of made you wait sometimes. So maybe you'd do 5 minutes of standing meditation practice out there on the bustling, hustling dock. Maybe you would do 25 or 30, but you just stood there. Eventually, this wonderful guy, Richard, would show up, like a short guy, Italian. I think he was from New York. He talked like he was from New York. I think these days he lives in Malibu. Don't even know if he's there anymore. But anyways, he kind of talked like this. He was kind of a short guy. Kind of the guy maybe you'd see in a Scorsese movie. Kind of like 15th gangster from the left. When you need him, he's there, but he ain't gonna stick out. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry for this Italian stereotype. Beautiful, beautiful man. And eventually you'd feel his hand on your shoulder, and he would talk to you a little bit. And again, the practice was to manifest this kind of an open heart and a humility. So when Richard spoke, you would just listen. And he seemed to have a very rich network of family and friends. So there was always somebody's second cousin's mother just got the cancer. So he would say, pray for them. Or he would say, yeah, my sister's son, he's no good. He's lying around on the couch all day. Now he wants to come work for me. And you'd receive gossip. You'd let him unload on you. As he gave you this stuff, you would just kind of hold it. You'd look him in the eye, not creepily, or look at the ground and just receive what he was saying. And when he asked you to pray for people, you would say yes. And then when I went back to the monastery, I would say a prayer. Zen monks don't really pray, but I do. And I would offer a prayer for them, or I would just hold them in my sitting for a few moments. More often than not, our prayers worked because Richard would say, "You guys pulled through again. She beat the cancer." It's like some of my fondest memories of being a monk is standing on that dock with Richard. Then after you had this interaction with Richard, you would go down to the truck and Richard would send a couple guys and we would pack from front to back the tail end of the pickup truck. And I mean, you had to learn how to, like, every square inch of space was taken up. I mean, he would give you so many mushrooms and radishes and mangoes and grapes and strawberries and potatoes and bags and bags and bags of salad and arugula and fruit, bananas, probably 1 billion bananas Richard gave us. Now, bananas. How did I get out? So, where? Yeah. Anyway. Bananas! Hi, it's tomorrow, Jack. Yesterday, Jack shot all that previous stuff. Then I got interrupted, had to go into the forest to continue shooting, racked up another 35 minutes of footage, just looked at it, garbage, had to cut it. I'm having a hard time saying exactly what I want to say in this video. I shared with you all that stuff about takahatsu because I wanted to give you a portrait of, how to put this, like nobility, a noble beggar. Not that I was noble, but the act of asking for help, asking for support is noble, is a noble, respectful, humble practice in Zen Buddhism. And I never felt degraded by this practice. Never. I mean, I remember one time, sometimes people didn't appreciate you. Like, I remember there were some guys that gave me attitude. Like, one time I was packing the back of the truck with a guy who had like these really blurry prison tattoos, and he was like a tough dude, and he gave me some attitude, and I went to shake his hand after he helped me pack the truck, and he just spat on the ground and walked away. Talked to one of his peers a little bit later, and the guy said, yeah, he thinks you monks are dirt. He thinks you're dirt for coming to beg for food when you can go work for it, right? You had a little bit of that, but mostly people were very respectful, and I always had a good connection with Richard and his crew. What was so beautiful about that practice of takahatsu was being outside of the wealth as worth paradigm. Like, if you're begging, you have no wealth. But my worth was never called into question. You know, I've been out of the monastery for going on like 6 years now. It's 5.5 years, and more, it's like it's a distant memory of living in a place where everybody was equal. Gosh, is that all I've been trying to say this whole time? There it is. We are not manifesting a society that upholds that value. And it's worth remembering that. I'm not saying go overthrow the system, just that you may be manifesting some of the system's values without even knowing it. Sometimes you can't give money to the guy who's asking for money on the street. Sometimes you can. But no matter what happens, the person is equal to you. And the person, don't objectify the person. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Don't objectify the person. We can pay people off when we give them money on the street. We can use that donation to this person to reinforce our superiority and our sense of separation. But I think if we're going to continue to grow and evolve as individuals and as a society with the right kind of values, we have to scrap this idea, this notion on the inside and on the outside around us that wealth equals worth. That's all I gotta say today. Thanks for listening. I can't imagine a better prelude to a pitch for you to join my Patreon page if you are so inclined and you want to support this channel. I'm putting a link below right here and also in the video description for a Patreon page and a PayPal link if you want to throw a one-time donation my way, or if you want to buy my books, I've got some links there to Amazon, which I hate, but what can you do? Amazon is Amazon. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.